This is part 1 in an ongoing series about 1990s visual novels, their impact, and a whole lot more. Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid and Death Stranding fame made a few adventure games in his earlier days. Obviously, everyone knows Snatcher and its highly absurd price tag for getting a copy of the Sega CD version. Technically, that version of the game that everyone knows wasn't released in 1988, but instead 1992, the CD-Romantic Remaster. On the PC Engine CD, Snatcher got a full upgrade which included new content, voice acting, and updated graphics that didn't have hundreds of scan lines on them. That version included the third act, an hour-long wrap-up to the game, which earlier versions didn't include, and instead left everything on a major cliffhanger. A sequel with 3 more acts was in the works almost immediately after the original game was finished, but as we all know, that simply never happened, and Kojima instead began work on Metal Gear 2. Snatcher was of course ported to the Sega CD in 1994, became a cult classic, and got expensive. Thank you, America. Like I said in my last video, the game is great, but that video sucked really hard, and no one has any patience to hear me talk for 10 minutes without any footage to go with it. But now we do. The gameplay is your standard graphic adventure game, but at points you get to fire a couple rounds into some robots and snatchers. In this part, you are stuck to a fixed grid of 9 tiles and just have to fire at anything that moves before it fires at you. It's fun and can get kind of challenging the parts at the end. The story is great for the most part. I already spoiled like 90% of it, which I highly regret. But the only problem I have with it is the backstory with the USSR. It's not awful, but these parts just seemed shoehorned in because late 1980s cyberpunk, the commies suck, yada yada yada, or they just couldn't figure out anything better to do. I probably shouldn't be hating them for that because I sure as hell can't figure out anything to go with it instead of communists. The translation and voice acting is really top notch for the time. Definitely blew anything that Working Designs was doing for the most part. Overall, it's a great title and is still worth your time. I still give it a 10 out of 10. But Kojima and his team weren't done yet. After Metal Gear 2, they began working on a new adventure game for the PC 98. 4 years later, in an upgraded version of the system later, Policenauts came out. A game spanning 1 disc, full of voice acting, amazing music, and gorgeous artwork. The PC 98 2.1 version of the game truly looks like something else. It just looks great. The version has been cited for having one of the aesthetics in a vaporwave type sense at parts in its graphics, along with another 1994 game, Kingsfield, and turns out one of these 2 games are actually good and worthwhile experiences. Guess which one is just Lesbian New Kid Cyberpunk? Anyways, Konami decided to ditch that amazing pixel art style and high price tag and port the game to consoles. First to the 3DO in 1995 with a hand-drawn anime look, 15 FPS cutscenes, and great improvements like subtitles. Then in 1996, PlayStation and Saturn ports because, of course, the PS1 version came first and fixed up some of the graphics, and that's all of the major stuff that it did. Or did it? You see, Sony wasn't too on board with one of the game's mechanics. That mechanic is called sexual assault. In the game, you can do, well... Turns out this whole mechanic took 2 people to supervise, and Sony wasn't too happy with it, so they held a meeting with Konami about censoring it, and they got their way. That's one of the things that happened throughout history, I guess. Thankfully, the Saturn version, it was left uncut because that console had a lot less restrictions. Heck, nudity wasn't allowed in games until 1996. But they didn't say adult scenes weren't allowed, so boom, PC 98 ports. The Saturn version also includes 24 FPS cutscenes in a dictionary. This version has been considered the best version along with the PC 98 version and is definitely more accessible. The game was planned to be released in the West, but that never happened due to dubbing issues. This was a time before English localizers just gave up on dubs for games like these. The earliest example I can think of is Panzer Dragoon Saga in 1998, but thankfully a fan translation of the PSX version came out in 2009, so people can play it for themselves in the English-speaking world, with hopefully imported base games. Everyone just pirated it. And the Saturn version got a patch in 2016, which is the best version to play of the game without a doubt. Anyways, how's the game? Well, check out the title. What are Policenauts? What do they do? You could be led to believe that you just policed in outer space, colonies, but no. This opening cutscene seems like it would, but it doesn't last very long. Jonathan Ingram's ex-wife wants him to find her husband in space. She dies, Ingram takes the case. Insert organ trafficking plot here. The adventure section gameplay is the same as Snatcher, but instead of navigating through a few menus to land on what you need to find, you do the old-fashioned point-and-click gameplay. You point and you click. The PC version already had a mouse, so that was a no-brainer, but on the console versions you need to use the D-pad on their system, but mouse support was available. Heck, the console versions even had light gun support. Shooting sections are pretty much upgraded. You move your mouse cursor to kill your target before it kills you. Sometimes you have to be fast, and I found the default cursor speed on the console version to be painfully slow. At the very late points of the game, using this cursor speed becomes impossible to use. At one point, the game just says, fuck it. Using mice is a lot better, of course, and your light guns are always a nice way to get that immersion. Also, you have to reload when you're out of bullets. You still have infinite ammo, but you have to move your cursor off screen to get more bullets. And with the slow cursor, bullshit shots are definitely gonna happen. In this game, you meet many characters like Ed Brown, a police officer. Hey, wait a minute. Meryl Silverberg, not the same one as the Meryl in Metal Gear Solid, due to have time works. Karen Hojo, the daughter of Jonathan's ex-wife and her second husband. She's part of scenes like There's also Dave, who likes burgers, hates violence, and is in love with Meryl Silverberg. Damn, he's just like me. Not gonna lie, I like this game more than Snatcher. Its world building is much larger and doesn't have any of that dumb USSR stuff. The gameplay is a lot more fluid and fun, and there's a lot more characters to see and learn about. One weakness about Policenauts is probably the soundtrack. I think it has a lot of bangers, but most of the songs just get boring after a while. I've heard the intro to Metal Gear Solid enough times, so I don't really like the clip in the music, but it just turns out that clip is literally everywhere in the soundtrack. In Snatcher on Sega CD, I think every track bops. I just love the gritty style of FFM synth, and the CD tracks on the game are also pretty nice. Overall, I'd give Policenauts a 10. Highly recommend if you can play it, and of course you can, because if you have a computer, you can. Next time I'll be going through Hiroyuki Kanno's earlier games at Seizeware.